What up? Here's a reminder. History is written by the winners. I'm gonna say it again. His story, emphasis on history. I'm saying his story. History is written by the winners. Said winners would have to rewrite history in order to manipulate the masses. Said winners would have to rewrite history in order to manipulate the masses into doing what they want them to do. And when I say they, I'm talking about the powers that be. The powers that be have to manipulate the masses into doing what they want the masses to do. That is how this works. Lies and deception told long enough are accepted as truth and reality. See, reality is based on a person's perception. If that person's mind is captive to the winners, then the winners can alter that person's perception. Said winners can rule effectively, and if anybody questions it, then the person that questions it is seen as crazy. I know y'all remember the movie Infinity War. Well, Infinity Wars, yes, I said wars with an S, have been going on simultaneously. Synchronicity is real. The good news, folks, is that winning an infinite amount of wars is possible. Here I come being vague. Your infinite amount of wars is possible to win. The good news is that you can win an infinite amount of your wars. And I said it just the way I meant to say it. You can win your infinite amount of wars. Because the amount of wars that we're fighting all day, every day is infinite. It never stops. Now, to contradict myself a little bit, you might not win every single one of them, but you will win some of them. See, as perfectly imperfect or imperfectly perfect human beings, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to fall. We're going to fail. But the beauty of life is that as long as you're not dead, as long as you're not gone physically, you can always get yourself up. If you fell, you have the ability to get back up. And in that ability to get back up, you can gain higher ground. Quick little sidebar in regards to the superhero movies, since I mentioned Infinity War. Suggestive programming. I'll just say that. Suggestive programming. See, everything that happens in this world, none of it happens in a vacuum. So in other words, everything happens for a reason. There's no such thing as a coincidence. When something happens, there is a reason for it happening. Now, some people could hear that and they could be like, oh, here he goes being woke and deep. And, this is very simple and straightforward. This ain't about being deep or woke or, whatever words y'all want to use. That's not what this is about. This is simple. Simple and straightforward. This doesn't require you to put all this thought and intellectual power into it. That's not what this is. But if some of you see it that way, all right, cool. I'm just telling you that's not what that's about. But anyway, suggestive programming. The endless amount of superhero movies that's out right now, that's not an accident. It's about programming. And what's funny is that we're in an era where We're wearing masks every day. I mean, just think about it. Just, think about it. And I already know what people might say to that. Some people might think it's ridiculous what I'm saying. Okay. They're going to tell me that, no, we're wearing the masks because of the alcohol named thing that's out there right now. We're wearing the masks to keep ourselves safe from said alcohol named thing that's out there. I get it. I really do. Like, I understand that part. Got it. We here. We here. We see eye to eye. We see eye to eye. Trust me. I get that part. I get it. But it's just funny to me that we're inundated with all of this superhero content, which, quick little side note, I don't really have a problem with that because I love superheroes. I grew up reading comics, watching cartoons, the whole 9 yards. So I'm cool with that. In regards to the entertainment aspect of it, I'm cool with that. The world more or less has caught up because back in the day, I know I'm making myself sound old, but I'm gonna just say it like that. Back in the day, back when I was a kid, all this superhero shit wasn't cool. People got made fun of for reading comics. You were seen as a nerd. So a lot of this shit going on right now wasn't cool back then. It's cool now. It's more acceptable now. It's more mainstream now. But while it had its mainstream appeal back then, for the most part, just on the social tip, the superhero shit wasn't really cool. And y'all know I'm speaking the truth on that. Y'all already know. So anyway, suggestive programming. The masks. As we all know, superheroes wear masks. So on some level, this is like a game. And life is a game. Because the powers that be, they treat this like a game. And when I say this, I'm talking about society. They treat it like a game. We, the people, we're just pawns. We're chess pieces. That's it. In the bigger scheme of things, we're livestock. They see us as nothing more than cattle. I mean, and that's just the truth of the matter. We're just a number. We, as individuals, mean nothing to them. To ourselves, we mean more. We mean much more. But to them, the people pulling the strings, we don't mean a damn thing. Our life is useless to them. And let me roll that back. It's useful to enhance their way of living. But in the bigger scheme of things, we're disposable to them. I hate to break it to you like that. And I hate to say it like that. Because we could say that it shouldn't be like that. And I can say that I agree. Ideally, it shouldn't be like that. But that's not the world that we live in. We live in a tangible world with tangible consequences. But real quick, to go back to the whole superhero thing, you know, the mask thing, I say suggestive programming because prior to the alcohol name thing and the pandemic, we had all these superhero movies, superhero TV shows, superhero cartoons. So it got people acclimated to people wearing masks. People can visually see it. It just became a visual, a constant visual thing. So when it came down to it, once the powers that be said, okay, everybody, time to wear masks, people got on board with it. Of course, you got the people who are against it. I know that. We know that. But for the most part, people got on board. No questions asked. Not really. Not on a major scale anyway. At least not that I know of. Let's go a little bit deeper. Robots, AI, artificial intelligence, outer space. And when I mention outer space, I'm talking about the billionaires who apparently have been going outer space. Self-driving cars, etc. And I'm sure there's more, but you might see where I'm going with this. All of it sounds real fantastical. Of course, some of us have watched cartoons like the Jetsons with all the futuristic shit that was going on in there. People back then used to be like, wow, that's what the future looks like. Even though it seems far-fetched. And I don't think some of that stuff will happen in the near future. But the fact is, it's going to happen. It's really just a matter of when. So where I was going with this is, we've heard some talk in the Matrix about too many people on the planet, or the planet has too many people. Problem being that there apparently isn't enough resources for everybody. So they say. So you have mega wealthy, elite people who think that humanity needs correction. That sounds kind of like Thanos. Yeah, Infinity War. Y'all know that movie Infinity War? Yeah, that one. Sounds kind of like Thanos. Correction. A restart. A reboot. And a reprogramming. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right. Avengers Infinity War is a movie, obviously. But is it just the movie? If you really paid attention to that movie, you know that depopulation was part of that movie. A huge part of it. Getting all the Infinity Stones, the snap, depopulation. Because remember, when Thanos did that snap, half of humanity, maybe more or less, if I remember correctly, were snapped out of existence. Okay, so What does this have to do with real life? Well, there is a depopulation agenda, and that's not a conspiracy. For the ones out there who like to just throw that term out there like that, this is not a conspiracy theory. There really is a depopulation agenda. You don't believe me? Google is your best friend. Depopulation is currently in effect right now, on a quiet level though. And I say on a quiet level because nobody in their right mind is going to come out and say, yeah, we're trying to get rid of half of humanity. Nobody's going to outright say that. You got to read between the lines. You have got to read between the lines. When there's an agenda out there, especially one on a grand scale, it's not going to be put out there so blatantly. They're not going to come out there and spell it out for you. So that's why I say on a quiet level. But see, what keeps us distracted on a daily basis is that we are dealing with an infinite amount of wars, dealing with those infinite amount of wars, fighting battles, losing battles, winning battles. That keeps us distracted. That keeps us distracted. Outside of that, people are distracted by shiny objects. So there really isn't much time to critically think. With all of that in mind, the treadmill of life continues. It's just a treadmill because we are running in place. We seem like we're moving forward, but we're just in one place. We're moving, but we're just in one place that whole time. So that's why I say treadmill. People in power know that in order to get the masses on board with an agenda, especially an agenda that is not in the masses' best interest, they have to introduce that change slowly. And it has to be change that seems like it's in our best interest. And they have to do it slowly. Because you can't just dump it out. You can't just push it out on people like that. It's too much. That'll be too much. It creates it's a shock. It's a shock to the system. It creates a shock to the system. So you can't just dump change on people like that. You got to do it slowly. It's got to be slow. You've got to do it so slow that one, people barely notice it, but two, people kind of notice it, but at the same time, they have time to get acclimated. They have time to acquiesce. They have time to conform to that change. Because when it comes to anything involving change of some sort, it can't be uncomfortable. People do not want to be uncomfortable. People like to be in a comfort zone. So that change has to feel comfortable. You don't want to push that change out on people to the point where they're uncomfortable and then they fight it. That's not what the powers that be want. And they know that there's going to be some tug of war. There's going to be some pushback here and there. But for the most part, as long as they roll it out slowly, the masses will get on board. It's really just a matter of time. And the key thing here is that change has to look like a solution. There has to be a problem, and then there has to be a solution. See, there goes that Hegelian dialectic. In other words, the powers that be, the folks who pull the levers of power, they create the problem, and then they create the solution to get the masses back on the program that they want. That's what that is. But a solution has to be presented. Obviously, when there's a problem, people don't want to keep dealing with the problem. People want the solution. That has to be given, but it has to be given on their terms. And when I say their, I'm talking about the powers that be. Oh, they'll give you a solution, all right. They're going to give you a solution that's just going to put you back on the treadmill or keep you on the treadmill. See, submission to man-made laws is easy once people are fully indoctrinated enough, long enough, and hard enough. Submission becomes easy at that point. Oppression, or some might see it as suppression, but we're going to say oppression. Oppression works best when, for one, it doesn't feel like oppression, and two, that oppression that people are going through, they don't fight it. Oppression works best when it doesn't feel like oppression. Now, for a lot of people, that's crazy talk, because for the most part, we have freedom or free agency. We have free will, but in the bigger scheme of things, you really need to ask yourself, do you really have freedom? When you look at the landscape, you look at society, you just look at everything in its full scope. Ask yourself, do you have freedom? And this isn't to be confused with free will or free agency. We don't need to confuse them. I'm talking about freedom. I'm talking about freedom in terms of sovereignty. Oh. Sovereignty. It's quite a concept. It's quite a concept there. Self-governing. Man. That's heavy. Those are heavy concepts. Self-governing. Sovereignty. True liberation. Yeah. Yeah, the powers that be. Yeah, those who are really running things out there, they don't want that. They don't want that for you. They damn sure don't want that for you. You know why? Because then they cannot be in power. It's really that simple. They can't afford to have people just being truly free. They can't afford that. Because it doesn't keep them in power. It doesn't keep them up top. It doesn't keep them in the top 1%. Self-governance? Nah, they don't want that. Not for you. They don't want that. They don't want that for you. They don't want that. That is why it is important to have government, which also means mind control. Whoever doesn't believe me, look it up. Look up the origin of the word government. Anyway, that's the reason why they have to have that. That's the reason why there has to be government. Governments. Because there's governments all over the world, as we all know. Governments, they gotta have those. They got to have those. Because without those, whoo! I'm about to say the A word. I'm about to say the A word. What's the A word? Anarchy. Now, real quick, I'm not going to say that that is the solution to our problem, but I will say that the popular term or the popular definition of anarchy, which is chaos, that's not really the definition of anarchy. Now, I understand that, yeah, if you look it up, there is mention of chaos. I do understand that. But really, it's just about self-governance. Governing yourself. Let's just look at it for that meaning. Because obviously it's a word with multiple meanings like other words. And yeah, some people will say it means chaos. But see, they don't want that. And anybody in their right mind would not want chaos. Nobody wants a society of chaos. I damn sure don't want that. Most rational human beings who are humane in their being do not want chaos. We do not want a society of chaos. So we understand that we do need some level of, for lack of a better word, governance. I'm going to just say it like that. However, the ideal thing is equity. It's about equity. Equality is not really a thing. Yeah, it might be something to strive for. Yeah, it sounds good. Yeah, that's something we might need to, I guess, try to attain. But it's not possible. And I don't like to say not possible as in impossible, because I don't believe anything is impossible necessarily. However, it's just not reality. There's never been equality, ever. If you look throughout history, everybody has not always been on a level playing field. It's just never happened before. But we can talk equity. Now that's real talk. We could talk about what's equitable and, yeah, strive for that. Basically, strive for a system that is about justice. A system of justice. And a system of justice would be about what's equitable. At its core, the system that we live in now is a system of injustice. Especially to melanated people. Especially to black people. We live in a system of injustice. We don't live in a system of justice. So when it's all said and done, it's about creating a system of justice. Going back to things not being equal, enslavement is part of human history, as we all should know. It's part of the fabric of humanity, unfortunately. Enslavement has always been around for the most part. However, enslavement adjusts to the times. That's what it does. It just makes adjustments. The enslavement isn't always going to look the same. It might be the same in some aspects, but then in others, it's not going to be the same. It's just going to get more sophisticated. That's why I say that we live in a system of sophisticated slavery. There's always going to be that push and pull with the masses and the people in power. There's always going to be a tug of war. When it comes down to the masses, once we stop agreeing to the current form of enslavement, that's when things will seriously change. That's when things will change for the powers that be. And that's when we will have a real solution. I'll just leave this here. Part of that solution, questioning authority consistently. Until next time, same Pat time, same Pat channel.